that it's doing what it's supposed to do. In order to get all of that done, you're going to have some engineering. You're going to be able to, you should be doing some market homework to understand what the market opportunity is for a device like this, so that, presumably you guys aren't all sitting on $2 million of cash that you can spend. At some point, to do studies like this, you would have to be able to raise the funds to support the work that's being done. And in order to do that, you have to have a prototype, you have to have an understanding of what the market opportunity is, and then you would probably approach some type of a partner, whether it's a device company or a venture capital firm, somebody that is going to be the money behind the idea. So the market research, I think, is critically important. If you find out that, in the U.S. there's a patient population of so many patients that are on oxygen therapy on average this many weeks, months, years, and you size up essentially what is the total market opportunity for delivering oxygen to patients. Then you take a step back and say, okay, of that market population, what percentage of patients do I think I could get converted over to my product? And based on that, you could do the math and say, okay, that gives me a total market opportunity of $2 billion a year. Okay, I'm making up a number. Then by showing that you can engineer the system and that there is an advantage for patient compliance or oxygen control within those patients, you could make a straw model for how much you would be needing to charge for the use of the equipment, either by sale or by lease or by, I don't know what the overall marketing to patients would look like. But I'm just thinking in big strokes right now. Let's say that you did get FDA market approval. You're going to need somebody to be able to manufacture the material, the product. You're going to need somebody to distribute it. You're going to need a sales force, the people that are going to be interacting with physicians. You're going to want key opinion leaders within the scientific community who are out giving presentations at national meetings on your behalf, or to describe the use of the equipment. So there's an awful lot that goes on after the science is done related to marketing and developing an overall business strategy. Did that answer your question, Christian?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
And there's probably a dozen other things that I haven't thought of, but just big picture things.
Is there like a specific way you're supposed to write out the procedure, like the experimental procedure, and like where would we find that? Like a guide to write it?
You froze halfway through the question.
Like a specific way to write the experimental procedure or the clinical trial? Or is it kind of just dependent?
So is there a specific format that the protocols for the clinical trials need to follow?
Yes.
The answer is yes. Where would you find that? Again, I would look at the FDA websites for conduct of clinical trials for devices, and they probably do have a format, a template in there. Okay. If they don't, then what you'd want to find is somebody that's experienced in doing these types of trials that can help you to make sure that you put together or at least that you have the template, not necessarily that you have the protocol refined and ready to go. One of the things that I'm doing in Boston, and I will spend all day on this tomorrow, is I'm consulting with a small company on the development of eye drops for post-cataract surgery. And the reason I'm here is that all of their consultants are coming in for a common meeting to make sure that we've got a well-executed or well-planned strategy before we go into the clinical trials. So the point is that small companies typically do use people like me to help them develop the strategy and to be able to speak with the regulatory bodies and represent that the company, pardon this, but the company is not just a bunch of high school kids who are pursuing a project. You have to have some degree of regulatory savvy in order to put these types of plans together.
All right, and then.
And by the way, I can chat a little bit with one of the consultants that I'll be meeting with tonight and tomorrow, and see whether he knows of anybody that does this type of work, and it's possible that I could even find a name for you that could help.
That'd be
Thank
great.
you.
And then I had a question going back to, I guess, like different authorizations. I know that oxygen is prescribed as a drug. Do you know if there are any rules about how it's used, or is it just you get a prescription and you can use it whenever?
Well, so again, you're kind of suffering from a halted video connection here, or audio connection. But if I understood the question, it is that it's a recognition that oxygen is prescribed by physicians for patients. And do I know of any specific rules that relate to the prescription of oxygen for patients? I think that's what you asked.
Yes.
I don't, but you're fortunate in this space in that there's an awful lot of prescription of oxygen that goes on. So you're not going to have to verify that a certain percentage of oxygen delivers or causes an increase in blood oxygen to this point. That work is going to have preceded you by a long time. So you'll be able to fall into pre-existing information such that you don't have to repeat a lot of things. You would simply have to find out what the physicians are desiring in terms of blood oxygen concentrations as measured by pulse oximetry, and then show that your device can deliver that.
Okay.
At least that's my simple view. You'll fall within what is already approved and available for use in these patients in terms of what you're trying to do. You're not trying to supersaturate their blood with oxygen or undersat. You want it to be maintained in a physiologically relevant Sorry, I got a grin.
Oh.
Yeah. It was frozen for a few seconds there.
Oh, I'm glad I wasn't picking my nose.
So, you were saying about how we want it in like the ideal range, not too high of level, not too low of level. We were thinking of building different, I guess, alarms or safeguards into our device that would either cut it off if there's too much, or put it on full blast if it's way too low. This might have some, I guess, parallels to drugs. Like, you don't want to give somebody too much medicine or too little. I guess, like, would we have to build something like that in by rule, or would that just be
Okay.
Yeah. So oxygen is toxic. You know that. If you give pure oxygen to patients, you can injure their lungs pretty badly and irreversibly. You'd want to make sure that you had some type of a safeguard in your system such that that can't happen. Especially, in thinking about this, I think one of the real opportunities here is for patients who are sleeping, that don't have the ability to manually adjust their respirator. Well, you sure don't want to have people asleep and have something happen with the system that either failed to alarm or shut off in the event that you were exceeding what the intended dose would be.